Okay, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for the final user group for 2021. We kind of figured good riddance 2021 was the was the best example of maybe a topic for this month. So we've got some things scheduled to help you from a housekeeping point of view, and some things that maybe you might want to add to it could be an annual schedule or maybe even a little bit more frequently than that. But we'll go through a few different things and then look at our top 5 tips and walk you through those. My name is Derek Bell. I'm the Director of Customer Success and Marketing at Marketing Cube, and we have Jason O'Donnell on the line, our Account Director, who will be able to assist with some Q&A. So thank you, Jason, for your assistance. Let's jump in. So the agenda for today is there were a couple of questions that were submitted during registration, so I'll walk you through those. And always on campaigns, especially as we in the Southern Hemisphere head into our summer break. Are there some campaigns that maybe we need to just have a little bit of a think about in relation to the messaging and SLAs and those sorts of things that we may want to slightly modify or pause or do other things too? So we'll have a look at that. We'll also look at some data tools and some other examples of ways to help you automate some cleansing of data. Present our top 5 tips will actually be a little combination of points 2 and 3 as well. And then we'll have a look at the release information for 21D. So the first question came from Monica in Auckland, and I can see Mon's on the line. So welcome, Mon, good to have you with us. And she asked the question, are there automated or automatic reports that I can set up to detect errors? So in this particular example, Mon was specifically talking about the integration between her CRM platform and Eloqua. And the answer is yes. And in fact, I actually had a separate conversation with Mon prior to today's webinar to sort of outline that for her in a bit more detail. So the answer is yes, as you can see, very simply, it's a yes. And actually with the most recent release of Eloqua, which is 21D, which is taking place right now for most customers, you'll find there's some new functionality and new ways to trigger different reports or email notifications should there be errors with integration. So that's certainly worthwhile looking into. If you do need some assistance with identifying some of those and getting those ready or getting those triggered to you, just simply contact the support team at Marketing Cube. So support@marketingcube.com.au, and they'll be able to assist you in getting those set up. One of the other questions came from Casey Ann in Sydney, and Casey Ann's on the line. Welcome, Casey Ann. So she says, in the form editor and under hidden field, there is a pre-populate field data. Under static value, is there a character count limit on this? Well, the answer is yes, there is. But let me just show you what she's referring to specifically. So this is the form, and taking, for example, a hidden field, which is often the one that you'd probably want to pre-populate. You can see there's a static value as an option there under pre-populate. And so the question is there a character limit on that static value field? And the answer is yes, there is. I actually had to test it myself to be 100% certain, but it's 100 characters is the answer to the question. So you just got to be careful if you're playing around with large text fields. So in this case, it's 100 characters, including spaces, Casey Ann, for you to put in there. So FYI on that one. Good question. And as I said, I had to literally do a little bit of testing myself to see what that was up to. So yes, 100 characters. All right, let's jump into our always-on campaign maintenance. Are your always-on campaigns still on message? Lead nurturing, onboarding campaigns, and those sorts of things. One of the joys of marketing automation, of course, is the fact that it is automated. And sometimes when it's automated, it just keeps happening in the background, and we potentially forget it, or not forget about it, but maybe don't go in and pay that much attention to it because we know it's functioning, we know it's working, and we know it's pushing information out the door, etc. So an example for us at Marketing Cube was we have different subscriptions, as you know, that people can subscribe to. One is our events subscription, and it's largely been crickets when it comes to events for the last 18 months. And so we had to adjust some of our comms, which we sort of realized around April, I think it was, of 2020, as we were sort of in the middle of lockdown and we didn't really have any insight as to when this whole experience was going to end. But of course, all of our comms talked about, we'll get invitations to you in the next month or so, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, so we had to go in and make some edits and changes. And so that's on our agenda for January to revisit those again and have a closer look at what we've promised and what we're talking about and what we're sort of marketing to people. So that's just one example of an always on type of campaign. Think about your autoresponders, essentially. So when you think of autoresponders going out for different subscriptions, etc., are they still on message? And we've just had a couple of clients recently do some reasonably significant rebranding. And those autoresponder emails can sometimes be forgotten in that rebranding exercise. So don't forget your autoresponder type emails and making sure that they're always on brand and on message with whatever's happening at the moment. And this time of the year, typically, depending on how crazy things are in your part of the world, this time of the year can be a good time to revisit some of those things and make sure that they are, in fact, on message. So one of the key things to do at this same time of the year is to also take a step back and have a look at doing some measurement. Now, there are two key insight reports that probably provide you with the greatest amount of support and assistance in understanding the performance of these campaigns. That is the campaign analysis overview, and then also the email analysis overview reports. So both of those will be able to give you a level of insight. Now, you may or may not have extracted these reports yourself previously at different points. So let's jump in and just have a quick look at where they are. So from the analytics menu, we access Insight. And then from Insight, we go to the home screen. And from the home screen, let's dive in and probably have a look at the email analysis overview first of all, because that one will give you very detailed information about respective emails. So we're simply going to email. And you'll see there's a whole range to choose from. I've actually got one marked as a favorite, being the email analysis overview report. We'll just zoom in a bit there so you can see that a bit easier. So we click on open. And the first thing you're going to need to do is provide a date parameter or a date range. So you can select from the dropdown, which is the last 7, 14, or 30 days. If you want to be a little bit more specific, just leave that as blank. And then come in here and then use the pop-ups to select a relevant date. So I might, for instance, just go back to July 1st this year, select OK, and then we just select today. So two things you can do here. We can leave it as it is right now and select OK. Or if I wanted to, I could be more specific and actually come in here and search for an individual email or a series of emails that may belong to relevant campaigns. So let's look at 2021-07. And the reason I'm doing that is because a lot of those relate to a particular user group that was happening. Hopefully not those ones. There's just some training and other bits and pieces in there. There we go. So now I've selected a specific set of emails and I can extract that report. So if you think about looking at all of the emails in a particular campaign, that would be a great example of how you could do this to be a little bit more effective. So if you think about onboarding campaigns, if you think about nurture campaigns that you've got, what you're then able to do is look at all of those emails together, look at their overall performance. If you scroll a little bit over to the right, you start to get more of the unique values. So unique click-throughs, click-through rates, click to open rates, any form submissions that may have been a part of that whole exercise as well. So the email analysis overview report is a great way to look at the detail that's sitting behind your campaign and understand what each of those individual or how those individual assets are actually performing. So now it comes time to think about optimization. Should we maybe pull one email out or replace it with some other content? For instance, it's not performing that well. It's not really driving what we need it to drive. And so you've got a better chance of getting some, or hopefully getting more engagement if you can go through that optimization process. Now, of course, the other thing you can do is save some of these reports and actually have it come to you on a regular basis. And that'll, in fact, form one of our top 5 tips, is to look at doing that. And that way, these things can, because they're automated and they're happening in the background, They sometimes can fall a little bit behind and you don't pay them perhaps as much attention than perhaps we should. So being prompted, perhaps it's the first of each month, you can have an automated report just like this arrive in your inbox as an Excel file. And you can send it to any member of the team. It doesn't have to be an Eloqua user. You can go to anybody and they can access that information in a bit more detail. So that would be one suggestion for you to look at analyzing and measuring that performance. The other part of the exercise, of course, is the cleansing of data. So some tips to help you cleanse data. And the cleaner your data, the more effective your campaigns can be, the more effective your segmentation can be. And of course, the nirvana is far more effective personalization as well. So let's have a look at some of the tools that are available to help you do that. But the first thing we need to understand is your data model. You need to have some clarity around where your data is in fact coming from. So, is it coming from a CRM platform? Is it coming from an ERP? Is it a data warehouse? Are you running LinkedIn or Facebook campaigns where you're getting net new data coming into the platform, for example? If you understand all of those things and understand where the data is coming from, you have a much better chance of being able to scrub and clean that data as you move through. If you're uploading data manually, so if you're using Excel spreadsheets for whatever reason to upload data into Eloqua, whether it's to a custom object or even to the core database, are you uploading the bare minimum or are you uploading as much information as you have? So yes, you can upload just an email address. That's fine, but that does nothing to help you from a personalization point of view, does nothing to help you from a segmentation point of view. It's just a very static, dead list of email addresses with no other information. So if you have first name and last name and company name and maybe job title, maybe some geography information, you know where they are, maybe they're in Australia or New Zealand or Singapore or wherever they might be. If you've got that data, load that data in, because that's all going to help you have a far better experience from a segmentation point of view, and then also from a personalization point of view. So don't just get by with the bare minimum. Think a little bit further, think a bit more holistically about your data and how that data is coming into Eloqua. So data tools. So specifically, there are 2 data tools available within Eloqua, but I'd argue there are loads more. But these 2 are actually referred to as data tools, and it's around deduplication and validation. And these tools are extremely helpful, especially when your instance of Eloqua is plugged into anything. Or even if you don't have it plugged in and you're only uploading Excel files, the data tools can still help from a deduping and validation point of view. So have a closer look at those. You'll find quite a bit of information in the Help Center to help you understand those in a bit more detail. But it's an easy way to remove duplicate records in an automated way. And that's what you certainly want. You don't want duplicates and you want the data as clean as possible. One thing you can do is combine some of that data tool type of thinking to programs. And the program canvas is a really great way to help enhance the data that you've got and the quality of the data. As it says here, it really is a great way to automate repetitive manual tasks. So if you find yourself doing something in a repeated fashion every single time you run a campaign, that probably is a good candidate for looking at a program to in fact take that over for you. And I'll show you an example of one here just in a moment. The program canvas is a great way to do that. It really does help you, as it says there, transform data within Eloqua, within real time, and you can set it to any sort of schedule and frequency as to how frequently a program should run. Programs are also a way, for instance, that's how we connect Eloqua to the CRM. In most cases, it's a program that's going to run that for you. If you've been using Eloqua for quite some time, you might be more familiar with Program Builder. And if you've been using Eloqua for a long time, you'll know that the Program Builder was what we used to use before we had the campaign canvas. The Program Canvas is a modern version of Program Builder. Key difference being it's faster in the way that it processes information. The other key thing that it enables you to do, which Program Builder didn't let you do, was to add apps. So just as you can use apps on your campaign canvas, you can also use apps within the Program Canvas. So that just gives you so many more options in relation to the way that you can help drive campaigns, but also in the context of what we're talking about today is around cleansing the data and keeping that data scrubbed so it's as clean as possible. So program canvas basics. Similar to the campaign canvas by design, it's meant to be similar, that's the whole point, but it has basically data sources, decisions, and then actions. So the data source can be from multiple locations. It can come in from a segment, it can come from a whole range of different places. We then have decisions which essentially let you evaluate either contact or custom object details to then have a yes or no outcome. I'll show you here a canvas in just a moment so you can have a closer look. So that yes or no path will follow any of the decisions. And so once you have a yes or no based on the question you're asking in the decision step, then you can perform an action. And again, in the context of today, what we're really looking at is how we can actually scrub some data and cleanse some data. So let me show you a program that we use here at Marketing Cube. And when I had a close look at it today, I realized we created this in 2018. So this is kind of just a program that just keeps running. So the purpose of this particular program is assigning a region to a contact based on the information found in the country field. So what we've done is we've taken every country on the planet, we've put it into an Excel file, column A. Then in column B, we've created regions. And these are regions as far as this is Marketing Cube's world of regions. So we break it down to North, Central, South America, Asia Pac, Asia, we have EU, then we have Europe, then we have Africa. Am I missing someone? I think that about covers it. And so there are regions. And so essentially what we've done is we've mapped every country on the planet to a region, and then we've told that to Eloqua. We've uploaded that into Eloqua, and then off it goes. So every day, this campaign or this program will run, and you can see there's been 1.6 million people go through this since 2018. So it comes down here, and the first question is a decision, and the decision is we're asking, is the country field populated? If the country field is populated, that's a yes, great. Then we move on, and we activate one of the update rules. And so that's the action on that particular step. And I'll show you the update rule here in a moment. Then once that's complete, we then evaluate and make sure now that the region field has been populated, because the job of the update rule is to populate the region field with a value. And if that's a yes, then we have one more action on that canvas, which is to then update the CRM platform. So whenever our CRM users go into CRM and look at leads or contacts, they'll see not only a country, but they'll also see a region. So that just helps from list building and other types of activities within the CRM platform and from a reporting point of view. But it's actually Eloqua that's driving that information based on the country field that we ask it pretty much at every single form. And whenever we enter contacts manually into the CRM, we always have country added as a field. So that update rule, that's where the magic happens. And so update rules is handled under data tools. And so you can see we've got loads of different update rules running there, but I'm focusing on the region assignment rule. And you can sort of see right there on this middle of the screen, the logic that is applied at that particular point. Now, how to get that Excel file that I talked about, because that's what I had to do with the support team. They're like, okay, Derek, you need to tell us what the data needs to look like. That gets uploaded somewhere in Eloqua, and I don't know where. That's the support team do that. They take care of that side for me. But now that just simply runs, and it's so incredibly valuable. We use it all the time on the canvas, this region notion. It helps us delay delivery of some emails within certain regions to ensure they arrive within business hours, all those sorts of things. It becomes incredibly helpful to us for a whole range of different reasons. The original motivation to do this was actually around the EU and their GDPR legislation, because we wanted to be in a position where we could very easily identify contacts from within the EU versus within Europe and obviously the rest of the world. So, so that's really how we managed to do that. Now, there's one really neat little tool within Eloqua that helps you see the data quality like the actual raw data quality that you've got. And it's under the fields and views area of the platform. So let me jump in and show you what that looks like. So from within Eloqua, you would access the settings area of the platform up in the top right-hand corner of the screen. And from the settings area, now depending on your level of access will depend on what you can see here. So you may need your admin to help you with this, but I'm going to go to fields and views. And based on what we were just talking about and that program, let's have a look at country. So this is all the controls, etc., that happen in relation to that particular field. But it's this little button right here at the bottom called Field Population Details. So if I click on View, what that's actually going to show me is all of the values that are currently sitting in the contact field called Country. So as you scroll down, hopefully what you're noticing is some pretty good data quality, okay? So we pretty much don't allow anybody to type in a country. So a country must be selected from a single select pick list. So that helps data quality immediately. As soon as you have a free text field, you can almost kiss your data quality goodbye. So a single select pick list is the great way to go. So if you add all of this up, you get to just over 10,000 or so contacts, and you can see there are 540 that are currently blank. So I keep an eye on those on a regular basis. There are different reasons and scenarios as to why we would have some in the database, but I think you would agree overall, looking at the size of our database, which is about 10,000 plus contacts, the 540 that don't have, actually the vast majority of those are test from memory, because I do look at it somewhat regularly. Most of it is test accounts that our guys, the support team, use for different things. So what we've got is really good data quality to help us deliver a much better experience. Now, the other one that's worth looking at is state or province, because as you know, as you access Marketing Cube content, we pretty much always ask these two questions. So now, of course, the value in this field for state or province is global. So it's not just all about Australia, it is global. So you'll see US abbreviations, Canadian abbreviations, for instance, with Ontario, and so on and so forth. And in some cases, you'll see there's a bit of issue with data quality. So USA is not a state nor a province. It's in fact a country. And there was one I spotted here before earlier. Yeah, Taiwan obviously is, well, that's probably up for debate, but anyway, it's it shouldn't be in this particular listing. And yeah, so what that means is I can come in here very quickly and actually see that there's some data that needs to be fixed. So what I would typically do, because then I want to obviously identify, well, who are these 16 contacts where we have state or province listed as Auckland, because that's clearly not quite the case. So what I can do then is go into segments, create a segment and find those contacts, and then look at them in a bit more detail and do some scrubbing, which would probably then be down to a manual exercise, but also try and find the source as to where those particular contacts were populating a state or province field with a value of Auckland. So see if I can find the glitch or find the problem or the fault and go ahead and fix it. So I don't know if you want to call that a hack, but I find this particular little function in Eloqua extremely helpful when looking at data quality and data integrity. Okay, our top 5 tips for annual Eloqua housekeeping. So I thought these 5 fellas looked like they were pretty excited. They were obviously keen to get onto their better marketing automation. So let's have a look at our top 5 tips. And as we go through these though, if you do have any questions or you kind of get stuck on any of these, or you kind of think, wow, actually maybe we should be doing that, etc., go ahead and scan that QR code that you can see on the screen and you can contact the support team directly. So number 5, contact cleansing. I thought I'd do a countdown. Instead of starting at 1, I thought I'd start at 5. So contact cleansing. This is, from a commercial point of view, this is a regular function for any of the Eloqua administrators that will be on the line today. You know what this is like. It's an annual exercise when it comes around to having to recontract or sign up again, all those sorts of fun things. That contact cleansing is important, and it can easily get out of hand. but it's pretty easy to manage at the same time. So deleting all of your hard bounce backs and those who are globally unsubscribed from Eloqua is a great tip. It's pretty easy to do. Just create a segment that will bring back those values, because what you're looking at is a group of people. If they've hard bounce back, then you simply can't send them an email. So there's really no point them being in Eloqua. And if they've globally unsubscribed, well, it's kind of the same exercise. You can't send them an email. So really, they're just taking up space within the platform. And as you know, the commercial reality with Eloqua is you're paying on a per contact basis. Well, actually, you're paying in bands, but yeah. So the more management of that and stewardship over that will be a good thing. So don't just leave it there, though. Provide that data back to the CRM team and make sure we flag them in the CRM. Certainly, if they've hard bounced back, you might describe them as inactive. But of course, if they've actually globally unsubscribed, that's an opt-out. So let's make sure we get the CRM platform updated to manage that and keep that in check. So what we don't want to do is delete them all from Eloqua and you feeling really comfortable that you've got ahead and done that. And then if we don't adjust the integration, half an hour later, everyone you just deleted will simply come back into Eloqua through the integration. So a little bit of work that needs to be done with your CRM team in concert with doing this type of a process. It's pretty standard, it's not hard. And again, you've got the email support QR code there. So please scan that if you've got any questions. Happy to help from that point of view. But yeah, we don't want to get all that hard work taken care of and then have them come back in within half an hour. So I just want to show you a screenshot of what that looks like within segments, just to give you a bit of an idea. You've got all the values on the right-hand side, or the filters that you drag in. This one is marked as a hard bounce back. I've adjusted the date or time parameter to as of now. So it gives you exact information. And there you go. It's 124 contacts in this particular example. From best practice point of view, what I would typically do is view those contacts, view all contact fields, and then delete that. So not delete, export that, and then just keep it somewhere safe. It's always good to keep a bit of a history of these things. And then you need to go through the delete process as well. So that's your hard bounce backs. If we look at the globally unsubscribed, it's pretty much exactly the same construct. So just bring the filter in from the left-hand side, assign the value. Again, the parameter is as of now, and then you'll get that number on the screen. So again, this is a group of people that you simply can't communicate with. They've opted out. Doesn't mean the CRM user can't communicate with them. It just means that marketing can't communicate with them. So let's get that information back into the CRM. So the sales team and others in the CRM are familiar and can see that this person is not going to be reached or contacted using Eloqua to do those things. Any questions on that one? I've got one here, actually. Here we go. KCN. Hi, KCN. Back to the fields and views. Can you delete a contact field that has values that are not relevant any longer, like arrival time for a flight, for example? That sounds like it probably should have been on a custom object at some point. Can you? Honestly, KCN, I would need to check that. I imagine you probably can. You'll just probably get a bunch of warning messages letting you know that it's got content in it. But I imagine, yes, you can. I don't honestly need to test that one. If an Eloqua contact, this one's from an anonymous attendee. So, wow, anonymous attendee. We don't have those very often. If an Eloqua contact is deleted and then re-added down the track, can you please clarify what contact history is retained beyond global subscription and bounce back status? Well, anonymous attendee, there's not much more than that. You can actually find the detailed description of what is maintained in the help center. Let's have a close look. So if we look for deleting contacts, I think that should bring up what we're looking for. We're looking to understand what information is retained. So under deleting contacts, I think it's down the bottom here. It tells you, yeah, understanding what contact data Oracle Eloqua retains and restores. So it's certainly the global subscription status. It's the email address status, i.e. was it a hard bounce back or their global subscription status, any bounce back history, but it does also remember email group subscription status. So you've got your global opt-ins, etc., and opt-out, so globally subscribed or unsubscribed, but it also does remember email group subscription status, so looking at one level down, for instance. Okay, so now for reporting purposes, any previous activity associated with the deleted contact is still available from Insight. Let's not confuse Insight with Eloqua, so it sits over in Insight. Any custom object records remain in the database, but Oracle Eloqua removes the linkage to the contact record. So that's part of the reason why I suggest to you that if you do have a list of contacts that you are going to delete from Eloqua, when you go through that export process, export all fields, because once you delete them, Eloqua forgets pretty much all of that information that you've just exported, except for the email address. If there's information in a custom object, it'll retain it. The digital body language, all that sort of stuff is maintained and held in Insight, but it's no longer available from a historical point of view within Eloqua. Okay, so you might think, oh gosh, should we do it? Well, hey, look, if it's a hard bounce back, that usually tells you it's a dead email account. So it's of absolutely no commercial value to you whatsoever. I mean, if they open an email 3 months ago, that's wonderful, but what are you going to do with it? If you've got the information integrated into your CRM platform, it'll stay within the CRM platform. It won't get deleted out of there. But yeah, just be aware of what is maintained and what's not. So again, pretty much answers to your questions are generally always available within the Help Center. Okay, so reviewing your always-on campaign. So we talked about this one a little bit earlier, but just to dive into it, I suppose a little bit further. So onboarding campaigns, lead nurture campaigns, and maybe even internal staff campaigns. If you have any sort of internal onboard, if you're using Eloqua, maybe the HR team are using Eloqua to drive some onboarding campaigns for staff, etc. You know, all those sorts of things should be reviewed on a fairly regular basis. The last thing you want to be doing is pushing out outdated and old information. Onboarding campaigns, again, it's the lead nurture campaigns that I often think about around the holiday period, and just wanting to be aware that, you know, if you have bold calls to action and SLAs promised, you know, we'll contact you within 6 business hours or 2 business hours, etc. You know, is that still a reality over that holiday period? Just something to be aware of as you go back and have a look. It's not just a matter of looking at the canvas. I find that it takes time. There's no other way to do it, but to actually go in and look at the email assets and actually read through them, have a closer look, and just make sure that they're still on the mark and actually making sense with your business today, what you're promising, and all those sorts of things. COVID has just thrown a red herring in everything that we do. And so kind of what was appropriate 18 months ago may not be appropriate today and may need a little bit of tweaking as you move through. So take some time to review those campaigns. As we looked at earlier, go into Insight, pull up those reports, have a look at probably the email analysis report. That's going to be the best one to really give you the detail. The campaign analysis is just going to give you a roll-up of all that information. So it's good for comparing campaigns against campaigns. However, if you really want to look at the email, dive into that email analysis overview report. Okay, number 3, the unengaged contact review. So this is not your hard bounce backs, and it's not those who are globally unsubscribed. It is those who are not opening anything, and they're also maybe those that you're not sending anything to. It's really interesting when we go through this discussion process with some clients that there can be a little bit of eyes wide open sometimes when they realize that there's potentially tens or, you know, maybe even hundreds of thousands of contacts sitting in your database that you've actually not proactively sent anything to in the last, you know, let's say 12 or 18 months. So then you've got to ask yourself from a commercial point of view, well, wow, they're just kind of taking up space. Why are they here? Why aren't we engaging with this audience? And so I used to refer to it as sort of the bottom of the barrel, and the barrel being your database. And right there at the bottom of the barrel are those contacts that just sort of never seem to get picked up in segments for whatever reason. Maybe you're relying on manual uploads, which means you're not really using the Eloqua platform to uncover those. They're sitting in external platforms and you sort of bring them in. So it's pretty easy to identify this group of people. You can create a segment, but you want to understand how you define engagement. Engagement can be different for everybody, and depending on your sales cycle and how long that goes, somebody that doesn't open things for the last 6 months may not be a real alarm bell for you. For others, it could be an extreme alarm bell. If somebody has not opened anything or actually not even been sent anything in the last 6 months, well, that raises some questions. And so try and define, first of all, what engagement means to you. Then you can start to find those who are unengaged or less engaged. But a really important exercise. And it does also come into a little bit, I suppose, into that database management, that if these people are really just in there and taking up space, what's the commercial value to the business to actually have them in there? Should we remove them? Should we think about a re-engagement campaign? That's probably the most obvious solution. Just trying to reach out to them, because that'll do two things. One, it helps you identify fairly quickly if there's any hard bounces in amongst that. Some may unfortunately choose to globally unsubscribe, but hey, if you haven't spoken to them in 12 months, it's probably no great loss to either party. Have a think through that. Have a think about uncovering that particular audience. Again, if you need a hand, please contact myself or a member of the support team, and we can sort of help you figure out what that means and build out a segment to at least identify that group and get an idea as to who they are. So tip number 3. Okay, and number 2 tip is the campaign performance review. And this is now not just looking at the holiday period construct, but it's also looking at all of your campaigns that you're running. And so it's pretty easy to leave some of these things just running in the background, or not even doing any analysis, running respective campaigns and sort of moving on to the next one. So there are a couple of really simple things that you can do to at least prompt you to have a look at some of those numbers. And one of the easiest ones is to look at creating an insight report, whether it's email or campaign analysis overview, and then subscribe yourself to that. So you need to create an agent within Insight to do that, or we can help you do that, whichever you'd like to do. And maybe it's a 30-day cycle, and it just simply hits your inbox. You can absolutely choose when. Is it the first day of the month, first working day of the month, whatever it is you want, for maybe the first day of the quarter, and it just constantly looks back maybe over the last 30, 60 or 90 days, etc., just to give you an idea. Because the other thing that will also do is help you identify engagement of campaigns that have actually ended, but may still be getting activity from email engagement. So email sitting in people's inboxes, for example. And that can be a great way to identify that and then potentially look at doing something. Something may potentially have been a little bit more successful than you thought, but unless we actually take some time to look at the numbers, sometimes those opportunities can fly by and we'll miss them. So final point there, optimize, edit, and adjust as needed, essentially. So just to revisit, in Insight, there's the email analysis overview report. And then you've also got the campaign analysis overview report. So those 2 reports are probably the most common ones. There's tons in there, by the way, and it's always quite interesting to go and have a look and explore those in a bit more detail. But they're probably the 2 key reports that are going to give you the insight that you need in order to really maximize the benefit of those campaigns and to optimize and do more. All right, so our number 1 tip. This one, it's something that we do internally ourselves. It's something that we obviously encourage customers to do, but it's about lead scoring. And so it's not so much just about doing lead scoring, which obviously we would encourage you to think about, and hopefully you've got some lead scoring models active. But with all of the effort that goes into building out that initial lead score model, what needs to happen is a test and improve process. We don't want to just set it and forget it and walk away. We need to look at it and put it into our business as usual process. Maybe it falls into a schedule that aligns with campaign planning, whether that's an annual exercise. Annual's good, but probably every 6 months is a better way to look at that. along with test and improve, is also the feedback cycle. So are you getting feedback and information from the sales team? So as leads are being handed to the sales team, is there a construct within the CRM platform where they can provide feedback, especially for the leads that they reject? So if there are leads that are rejected, is that information then just lost and lives in the CRM and doesn't work its way back to Eloqua? It can work its way back to Eloqua, but you can also, in most CRM platforms, also generate some reports to show you reason codes potentially as to why. Don't overwhelm the CRM user with 25 different reasons as to why they've rejected the lead. Just try and keep it nice and clean and simple. 5 or 6 options maybe is enough, and then use that information obviously to help you optimize those lead capture and lead nurture campaigns that you're running. So these things can often be talked about, but it's much nicer to have some empirical data to underpin the decisions that you're making, and also to underpin, I suppose, that feedback that you're getting as well at the same time. All right, so our CEO, Adrian Jones, wrote a blog post last month, I think it was, around 5 steps to avoid missed opportunities with lead scoring. You can use your QR code device to scan that QR code there, and you can go off and read the blog post. But this is just a nice 5 sort of steps to help you go through a process of making sure you maximize lead score models and how they can really help. Have a look at that. It's a nice, easy read. You can probably read it over lunch. To have a think about that, and I think that underpins and reinforces some of the points that we just made there earlier. Alrighty, well, that wraps up our top 5 tips. We'll just move on to the next step, which is what's new and what's coming. So with Oracle CX Marketing, Eloqua released 21D. Most of us will be on this by now. There are a few pods that fall into December, but certainly pod 1 and pod 7. Most of our Australian and New Zealand clients are sitting on probably pod 1 or pod 7. So you'll be up to date. It's the final release for the year, and probably the biggest functionality, or the biggest or the most exciting piece that's come out of that would certainly be around for the Salesforce customers. So if you're using Salesforce CRM, there's been a significant number of enhancements to the app that performs the integration. And if I go right back to the beginning of today's session, there was that question from Mon in Auckland. Those enhancements, Mon, relate quite specifically to you. There's more. There's always been ways to trigger reports around errors, but there's more now. There's more functionality available, and a little bit more granularity potentially in some of those reports as well. So if you need a hand with any of that, if you're a Salesforce user using Eloqua, then if you want some information or some additional help on that one, just let us know, and we can sort of help bring you up to speed on that one. For the geeks on the line, and you know I love the geeks, API changes. So if you're working in a fairly heavy API world, there's some changes there as well, and details on those. If you're using Maximizer with Eloqua, which is one of the Oracle CX marketing products, Maximizer integrates and is now generally available with Eloqua. So that's good news. The other one is the launch of Eloqua's native SMS offering. Now, it is under controlled availability, and you kind of need to put your hand up and you need to ask for access to it. Now, it is also referred to as an add-on. So there will be commercials involved for that. So as an add-on, there'll be a set rate, and then obviously there's the fees for the SMSs as well. If you are interested in understanding that in a bit more detail, or have questions, please contact any member of our team. Jason or Adrian can certainly help, or Marika in New Zealand can help with any questions you might have. And if they don't know the answers to the questions, we can get the answers to your questions. So that's not a problem at all. But yeah, we should all be pretty much on 21D. As I said, the last one's occurring, I think, the first week of December. Well, that almost brings us to a close. So something a little bit different here. I was wanting to have a little bit of a play with this add event construct. So you'll notice when you've been registering and you use the add to calendar function throughout Eloqua, we actually use an app called add event. And so add event enables us to make sure we deliver hopefully a far more robust add to calendar experience for you, because you can select the right platform. So Tuesday, the 8th of February, and what we're going to do is move in 2022, we're going to be moving the user group to the second Tuesday of the month. So there'll be nothing in January. We've sort of right at the end there for the Australian audience. We've got Australia Day and it kind of gets a bit messy. So we figured we'll just leave January, but we didn't want to leave it a whole month. So we thought, what the heck, let's jazz things up a bit, and we'll look at the second Tuesday. So again, it's Tuesday, the 8th of February. But if you go ahead and scan on that, if you could just do it as a favor for me, I would love it if you would do that, because I'm curious to see that functionality in the back end and what that happens. You're actually going to have an ad event experience when you do that. So, I mean, it'd be nice if I could brand it up, but I suppose that's why we have Eloqua, right, to do those sorts of things. But the integration, again, I'm not sure what's really available, so I'm kind of exploring a little bit. But what that's going to do is deliver to you, you'll fill in a form. It's just your name and email. That's it, nice and easy. And that'll give you the add to calendar function. I'll know that you've done that based on the information that you provide. And then what I'll be able to do when it comes around to February is, instead of sending you a registration email, I'll just simply send you a confirmation email. So personalization, we love it. So yeah, so I'll leave that on the screen for you. Are there any other questions? We've got one here. Is there a way to manually overwrite date of birth? I assume that's what it is, DOB, date of birth, contact field without re-uploading customers' data. Is there a way to manually? So that's going to depend a little bit, I think, on your particular configuration and your level of access to Eloqua. So date of birth is obviously a critical piece of information for what you do. So you could go into the contact, and it would depend on how Eloqua has been configured for you. You could just manually overwrite it. But if you're obviously doing it en masse, you would probably want to do a data upload in order to do that. Forms and form submissions can manage dates really nicely as well. So you can use a form submission to potentially do that. But yes, you should be able to manually overwrite the date of birth contact field literally within Eloqua as an Eloqua user. If you can't, it simply means that you need to have a chat to your administrator in relation to the levels of access and the ability to edit that particular field. So hopefully that helps answer your question. If there's no more questions, I think we'll call it an end. But thank you so much, everybody, for your support throughout the year. It's been a second crazy year, so good riddance, 2021. We're looking forward to 2022. Look forward to seeing you online next year. You'll hear from us probably towards the end of January with either a confirmation email or an invitation to join us. So thank you again. Have a wonderful Christmas break. Enjoy the summer, try and get to the beach or whatever it is that you like to do in the summer. For me, it's about eating mangoes and spending time with family. So have a wonderful break, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you, everybody.